You know the feeling when so many people are talking in a room, maybe arguing over each other, maybe just talking so fast that you just need to tell them to just shush. Or at least internally, you want to just say, everyone just stop talking. Just hush and let's just have some silence. Silence is something that is such a tool that I feel is so undervalued and so underused in our society, in at least my own life experiences. And it's something that comes more naturally to me just as my personality and just how I operate. And what I've noticed recently is that some of these things that come more naturally to me aren't always natural to other people. And I want to share that because it could be helpful for someone. And it's a tool that I really think is so valuable in so many assets or aspects of life. So let's talk about silence. Um, the reason for this topic came into my thought process. A lot of reasons for it is through my work. So I work with and have worked with a lot of people throughout the lifespan, like people who are, like kids through adults, um, and and like no matter how old you are, like this is just something that is so helpful for so many people. Is like being able to truly be quiet and to just listen. So listening is something that it really is an art form. And it's so funny because some people who are so good at listening in some realms, like seem to like leave it in that realm and like can't take it into other areas or don't take it into other areas of their life. So it's just so funny to me that like we'll use it as a tool maybe in certain scenarios, maybe maybe listening to kids or, if you have children, maybe, listening to your children or um, maybe listening more deeply to a loved one. But we find it hard sometimes to do that in any other areas, maybe to a coworker or to someone who maybe we just have less patience with, let's say. So there's a lot of areas I feel like where this can be used and it's just not. And in my work, I also like I work with a lot of people who have like different, um, lots of different communication abilities. So, there's people who communicate in a lot of different ways, and anything from like using devices to talk, or people who have hearing difficulties, or people who genuinely have like a language impairment, or people who um, are bilingual or multilingual and maybe are just learning a certain language. And so, they need more processing time to process things and to formulate a response, right? And like, it's not just that. Like, I mean, even if you think of people who, um, like the neurospicy community, let's say, people who maybe have ADHD or autistic individuals, people with, what we say are like different from the typical types of brains, which I hate that language, but that's just kind of the language we have right now. But like those neurodivergent or neurospicy brains, like a lot of times need different types of processing speeds. And so it's just like crazy. Like when we just talk over people or don't give space for people to fully formulate an opinion or a response or being able to join in the conversation, we are just like, what's the word? We're keeping ourselves from like some of the most, uh, like the ability to like get to know so many other people and to get so many different perspectives as well. Excuse me. The ability to get so many other perspectives. And so, sorry, I'm distracted by like a notification on my phone. But yeah, so there are there's just so much value in allowing space for other people to be able to share, right? And but that's just like one reason that silence is so needed. To go along with some more work analogies, I work also, I've worked with people who, excuse me, who have, and just like anyone, like not just like people I work with, but like whenever we're really frustrated or going through bigger emotions, right? Like you have to slow down. You have to be able to, um, excuse me. These allergies are just still killing me, but we're pushing through. But yeah, anyone who, hold on, let me get my train of thought back. We were talking about Um, see, this is literally me. This is also partially like why I want to do like unedited videos is I feel like we just need to get practice to like listen to people who have maybe different cadences, different ways of speaking, and honestly, getting a break from, the feed, that's just constant noise and constant talking. Um, and it's so funny because I am the first person who, like, I would not want to look at my watch history or like um, my watch time of like how much I'm watching videos or something on my phone throughout the day. So even though I tend to be like a lot more comfortable with silence than some other people, I absolutely fall into having that just, like bombarding myself with the noise through so much of the day. And like that in itself is, you know, something that I feel like we have to actively work against in just how a lot of things are built in our society, mostly social media, right? And it's just like more like talk and talk and talk and talk and ads and all of the things. And we have to really be intentional with putting up barriers to that um, because it's not naturally built in for us. And so, again, it's like silence is such an underrated and underused tool. Um, so it allows time for processing. Um, if you're feeling big emotions, it allows time for you to, for your logical brain to catch up with your emotional part of your brain, right? Um, it can also help with your sensory system, just thinking of like more of like kind of some of the sciencey parts of it, like when you stop talking and like get into like being able to just connect with your body and just think of okay like what or stop, not just stop talking but just like stopping like the constant input. It's like okay, you can actually check in with your body, like what does my body need, what does my nervous system need to ground, to calm right now. And a lot of times when we're feeling uncomfortable feelings, I will be like the first to admit when I'm feeling uncomfortable feelings, like it can be so easy and like seemingly comforting to, and sometimes it is comforting to, put on the noise and just just do that. And sometimes you need to do that, but then you got to come back to the silence and check in with yourself. Otherwise, it's not going to get better. It's never going to go away. It's never going to be resolved. So, like silence again, well, not again, but silence gives you that space to check in with yourself. So not just nervous system, but also, kind of like the nervous system and like the brain, like your logical part catching up with your emotional part. That's like kind of like the sciencey part of it, and then like also like the soul part of it is, you can actually hear your intuition. You can check in with yourself of like, okay, you know, are these emotions or is this thing like coming up for me because like it's just not feeling right for me anymore? Or like you can check in with yourself if you're battling a decision. Okay, instead of listening to unsolicited advice or solicited advice, either way, um, you can take that. Even if you did get advice, you have to then make that decision for yourself. And if you don't silence your life, silence the voices around you, and come into your own, then you're just going to keep living someone else's life or what someone else thinks is best for you, right? This is just something like I've just kind of naturally done this throughout my life for various reasons, but like I've learned to really come into myself, and it's brought me to a sense of self-trust that I have now that I would have never like been able to imagine, honestly, like younger me, which is really amazing, like, and freaking awesome to be in that space. And the only reason I got there was so many times, so many hard moments of feeling difficult emotions and coming back to myself at the end of the day. I might have pushed them away for a while. I might have drowned them out in, other, trying to do comforting things of watching TV or videos or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I got to connect with myself. I got to connect with my soul, my spirituality, my God. Like, I have to connect with the internal, like, whatever that looks like for you. And so that's where intuition lies. And that's to me also where like true wisdom lies. So again, like figuring out those details, or if you have a decision that you have to make, you have to come back into yourself to figure it out. Um, and that's where you're gonna find the truest version of you, and the truest answer. Like wisdom to me is more of like just what's like the best answer for you, for your soul, for your journey. And that's going to be different for everyone. Um, it's also just so funny how often I see, like in the workplace setting, where there's just not there's not listening. And to me, again, kind of going back to where silence gives us the space for other perspectives to come in. I really think it also allows for that like um, collaboration, conversation, and actual creative solutions to come up. And I find that at least in my experiences, when we are trying quotes, or maybe surface level trying to come up with a solution. Oftentimes it's not like there's maybe some discussion, but then also like if you don't allow for everyone to really have a place at the table, like you could say there's discussion, but it's like, okay, but like how many people actually contributed to the conversation? And the people who aren't contributing, why is that? Is that because they're not feeling safe to share? Is that because you're not giving them enough space to share? And this is something that I learned from a college professor of mine. Like I loved this idea, this concept, and it truly worked. And I don't remember. She might have said like where she learned it from, but um, it's just the rule of giving 10 seconds. So, in her context, being a professor, she asked a questioner of like, do you have any questions before she moved on to a new topic? She routinely practiced this of waiting 10 full seconds. And that can seem like a long time. And I'm sure there's some science behind it too, with like why 10 seconds and why it kind of worked out this way. But I swear absolutely times when like towards the end of those 10 seconds, like me or someone else was like, oh yeah, like, you know what, like I do have a question. But 10 seconds, it's really not that long, but it feels long in the moment. And it is, outside of that context, I have not seen anyone doing that for the most part. Like, so kind of working our way, coming back to like this concept of work, work meetings or discussions where, we're trying to find solutions and there's conversation, but it's like, okay, but did you leave actual space, actual silence for someone, again, maybe someone who just needs to process information a little bit more deeply before being able to form a response, especially if you're talking about something that's going to raise emotions, right? Because then you're working on managing your emotions and thinking of how do I respond to this professionally, right? And so a lot of times, like people may not speak up in that moment. And again, to me, it's just such a shame because you're just leaving out so much perspective and so many good solutions or possible creative ideas that other people have. Because I know for a fact that those people who did not have a chance to speak have thoughts and have opinions about that and probably have a very valuable perspective. And so I was just like, I have to talk about silence because it's a pet peeve of mine. And it's also possibly, I do have a very chatty family. I love them. I was definitely the quieter one in my family. And sometimes so it is, it runs deep, my sense of just wanting to be like, everyone just shush for a little bit. We just need some silence. We need some just calming down of our nervous systems, um, and space, space for people to think or to be able to bring up a new concept or a new topic or a new activity. And yeah, so I'm just checking. I want to check my notes really quick because I do want to make sure I got like the main things because yes, there was one more. There was one more thing I wanted to share. Um, yeah, the 10-second rule. Oh, that was so cool. Like for my professor, 10 seconds. Like it actually works. It actually works. Waiting 10 full seconds. And like again, it feels like a long time in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, like when we got used to it and like our professor is just doing it routinely, like that just becomes the norm. Like so it's a really easy thing for us to just to incorporate and it can just be a norm instead of us just constantly going and going and going, and not giving that space. And the last kind of big thing too with that, is um, like I touched on it a little bit, but when we have really big emotions, right? Like we need time to process. And I see it so many times, like especially working with kids when, they're upset. And like one of the first things that ideally should be done is like is minimizing your language, right? So you focus on like maybe one action that they could take or maybe giving like two simple choices, for example, of like something like just to help them think of, maybe like a calming down type of strategy that might help them and then they can kind of work through and talk about like and figure out what the issue was or why they were so upset or whatever the situation is, because they're learning calming strategies. They don't know what to do yet. A lot of adults don't know what to do about their own emotions either. And one of the first things that is very helpful is just really lowering the amount of language that you're giving them, the amount of words. And it's so hard for people to do. It is so hard in the moment. And I get it because you want to fix things, you want them to like move on. But again, like adults like need time to process emotions too. So why are we asking kids to move through it so fast. And this is not all the time. It's just like certain moments, and like, and I'm guilty of doing the same thing of using too much language and just being like, okay, yeah, like kind of needing to check myself of like, all right, I gotta scale it back. I have to, focus on like a couple choices, or like just giving like one clear action that they can take to help pull them out of, like, again, whatever like escalated state or like emotional state that they're in. And it's just so needed, to stop. Like a lot of times, like people will just want to pepper people with questions at that time, or kind of like they might give one directive and then like another different one, and then it's like, well, now it's just very confusing of like what you're really asking them to do. And again, it's when it's not clear and concise in that moment, um, it usually doesn't help as well as just being able to stop talking. Stop talking, as in, like being very concise with the language that you're using, and lowering the language, and using silence. Like, ask a question and then don't follow it up with another question, or give a choice, like give some choices and then just sit with them. Like, I can't tell you, there's been multiple times in my life when, um, like, I can think of one in particular that I'll share. But I was helping a student, I was supporting them at a summer camp, and someone said to me, like, wow, like last year, like she was, I forget exactly how they worded it, but essentially, like, um, she didn't have as good of a time, essentially. Like, she was just a lot more upset, and like, there were a lot more issues last year, and they're like, this year, you know, like you work really well with her, or like basically like something that you're doing is working. And I'm like in my mind, I'm like, I just sat with her. Like, that's all. That's all. And I'm realizing that this is like kind of a superpower that I have that, is might be harder for other people. So that's why I want to share this out. Like, it's such an important tool. Like, the skill to be able to just sit with someone. You have to, like, if you don't sit with someone, how do you get to know them? If you don't just sit and observe them and let them show you who they are or what they need, like, how do you get to really know them? Um, and this ties into as well, in my work as well, I like my practice is, whenever I'm learning, or like starting working with someone new, I observe. I don't talk a lot. I just let their language come out. I see what they bring to me first. And then I can start to ask them questions, or, um, give them certain directions or things. And it's not just, it is like to kind of build a relationship, but truly it's just like, how I truly don't understand, like, how would I know how to help them if I don't just observe them first? And I just notice a lot of people don't always do that. We jump in with directives, or thinking that we know what's best, and we might for sure like know certain things that might help, but I just never understood that of like, how do you truly get to know them if you don't allow for silence? And it can be uncomfortable to watch. Um, I feel like for people, sometimes it's like it might seem like, okay, um, like, but like, what are you doing, right? Like, we always want to be productive and like doing something and seeing progress. And it's like, we can't let those things happen unless we allow for some silence, and for them to show us, and for them to show us who they are, what they need, where their skills really lie, right? Because, again, if you just have them do like certain things, then you're not seeing what they can do when just spontaneously left to their own devices. Like, one of my favorite things about working with people, and like kids especially, are moments where I just let them be bored or see if they'll solve a problem by themselves. Like, we don't give enough credit to boredom and opportunity to problem solve. And that's another like freaking amazing gift that just silence gives when you just sit with someone and stop talking and just exist. You get to see, like, okay, like, I'm not giving them a direction. What are they going to do? Are they going to say anything? Will they sit there for like 5 minutes? And then I might say something, or cue them, maybe not after 5 minutes, but a couple minutes. Um, and, like, what do they do? If they are trying to figure out how to like build something or put something together or um, like put a game out, like if they're struggling with something, like what do they do first? Like I don't care if they take 5 minutes and figure it out themselves and don't have to ask for help. That's amazing. Like go for it. Like figure it out. That's awesome. And I don't care if you also want to ask for help immediately or maybe need a reminder that you can ask for help. But I don't know which one of those things you need unless I sit there in silence. And it is just such, to me, it's like a golden key of opportunity. Like I'm literally like envisioning like a golden key unlocking connection. Like not just what's your favorite color connection, but unlocking like who is this human? And for a workplace setting, like if I'm working with them, who is this human and what do you really need from me? Like, where is that support need? And if it's not in a workplace setting, like it's unlocking if it's in like a career setting where, like with coworkers or in like discussion or figuring things out, it's like it's a key that unlocks solutions that you are leaving behind. You're leaving behind such like amazing perspectives and solutions if you don't try a 10-second rule or if you don't truly have a discussion or an environment where people feel comfortable sharing or truly having the space to share. And that comes with silence and allowing that space. Um, so I could talk about this forever, I think, but I will end it there. Thank you for being here and listening to some of my rant about about people talking too much. And silence really is like a golden key. So I'm curious to know, what do you think about silence? And where has silence shown up in your life as either something that you've been really good with and it brought some amazing opportunities or new insights, or maybe where silence is something you struggled with and you noticed the effects of that? I'm seriously curious. So until next time.